Hi, I'm Sharon Wren,
And I'm Linda Cook.
and this is QC Crime Watch. Every week we bring up updates about some of the cases we've been following and tell you about some of the new cases that have happened since our last episode. We are recording this on June 30th, 2026, so everything is current as of right now.
Now.
Yeah, literally.
And it's like 3-ish in the afternoon.
Right.
So, yes, know that. We may go downstairs and find something new about something we're telling you. So,
But before we go any further, we have to remind you that we are not legal experts. We cannot give any legal advice or make a recommendation for an attorney.
right. Because that also would be a conflict of interest.
And
so.
you want somebody with training.
You do.
That's not us. Last week, we were talking about John and Jane Doe cases in Iowa, and one of them was in Winneshiek County, a John Doe that was found on March 31st, 1986. Okay, so we recorded last week's episode on June 25th. June 27th, the story broke that they identified the Winneshiek County John Doe. DNA technology has identified him as Clinton Womack. He was reported missing in Ohio after leaving one day and never coming back. The family says he suffered from schizophrenia, and they believe that he was hitchhiking back to their previous home in California at the time of his death. And that story lines up with reports of a hitchhiker provided by neighbors who lived near the farm in 1986. The sheriff's office says Womack's death is still undetermined, but there is no evidence of criminal activity.
So, this isn't being treated as a homicide.
No, not at this point. They're probably going to continue to try and figure out exactly what happened, but he's been identified. The family's been notified. There's closure.
Right. Some. You'd want to know the cause of death, but
Right.
I understand that.
Right.
That's good. Isn't it amazing? I mean, who would have thought that after decades, this kind of thing would come to light again? And it
Yeah.
also shows that when they say a case is not cold, they really are still working on it.
Yeah, 40 years with this one.
So mine is a little bit different. My case is a little bit more erratic, I guess you'd say. So this involves a Dubuque man, but it did happen in Davenport. So according to arrest affidavits in Scott County, this is what happened. A 33-year-old Dubuque man is scheduled to appear in Scott County court after police say he used his car to hit a squad car that had officers inside it. Shortly before 11:30 p.m. Monday, June 22nd, Davenport police conducted a traffic stop on a Nissan Sentra, and this is interesting, with Tennessee plates. So I don't know how those got in there, but that's what the affidavits say. That was on the roadway without its headlights. So in other words, they saw a car driving along without any lights. The Nissan stopped in a parking lot where officers made contact with the driver, who gave them the wrong name when they asked him to identify himself. So when they asked him, the driver, Mr. No Name so far, to step out of the vehicle, he rolled up the window, put the car in drive, and then drove backward, striking the squad car with officers inside. The Nissan spun out in the parking lot, and the driver intentionally drove at officers who were on foot by now. I will read this from the affidavit. The officers on foot would physically touch the vehicle to avoid further contact with the vehicle, affidavits show. The driver left the parking lot and took off from officers. And of course, by then, the squad car had its lights on and sirens activated, and the driver traveled at speeds of over 25 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. That's the differentiation sometimes between a misdemeanor and a felony when it comes to speeding or eluding.
Yeah, how much it is determines it.
Exactly. Officers successfully conducted a pit maneuver. Now, that's not a word, it's an acronym, and it means precision immobilization technique. So if you drive your car just so upon and around the speeding vehicle, that stops it most of the time. And it takes more than one person sometimes to do this pit maneuver. Anyway, the driver stopped and then he took off running. Officers used physical force to take him down as he was then physically resisting arrest. And I will read this from the affidavit directly. During this altercation, 2 officers would receive injuries to their legs and hands. Torrance Vickers, that's his real name, faces felony charges of assault on persons in certain occupations, use, display a weapon, eluding, speed over 25 miles per hour over the limit, assault while participating in a felony, and interference with official acts displaying a weapon. Additionally, he faces 2 serious misdemeanor charges of interference with official acts, bodily injury. Now, these are all listed in the affidavits. Court records show Vickers, who is being held on a total $11,500 bond in Scott County Jail, is scheduled for a preliminary hearing July 2nd in Scott County Court. This is the kind of thing that you don't think about being a danger to officers, but it is. A traffic stop can be a very, very dangerous situation because the driver, you never know. A police officer might stop somebody and say, "Hey, do you know how fast you were going?" Write a ticket. The guy apologizes and drives off. But in this case, that did not happen. So when people talk about officers being in danger, this is one of those situations when they really can be. I think Sharon has a case that's not as violent as this one, but it's every bit as interesting.
And the defendant is being held on a higher bail in my case than in your case, which I thought was interesting. A man from Walcott is in the Scott County Jail on a $75,000 cash-only bond after the Iowa Insurance Fraud Bureau said he wrote multiple life insurance policies on family members without their knowledge and collected commissions on the policies.
So he was
allegedly, of course.
Right. He allegedly was acting as an insurance salesman, correct? Right. And then he collected the money for selling the commissions for selling these insurance policies. Wow.
Yeah. Now, the criminal complaints filed in the case said that between February 21st, 2024 and January 24th, 2025, 11 different dates are in here, the defendant, identified as 61-year-old Stanley Blythe, and this is a quote from the criminal complaint, while acting as an insurance producer, wrote numerous life insurance policies on family members who were not aware that these policies were being written on them. The defendant signed these policies on behalf of the insured subjects without their knowledge or permission. The defendant's scheme resulted in at least $36,360.76 worth of commissions being paid to him, end quote.
Ooh.
Yeah, he allegedly wrote these life insurance policies on knowing family members multiple occasions, electronically signed their names, and listed himself as a beneficiary on some of them, not all of them, but some of them, while receiving the commission. He was arrested on a warrant on 11 counts of forgery, fraudulent solicitation, 11 counts of identity theft, and ongoing criminal activity. Now, they had a bond on him originally, but he's been released from custody under the supervision of the 7th Judicial District with a GPS monitor, and he has a preliminary hearing on July 7th.
So that GPS monitor, I presume, is what we call an ankle monitor.
I would think.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Wow. That would cause some family friction, I would think.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Thanksgiving is going to be very interesting.
To say the least.
To say the least.
Yes. Wow. Well, we'll be following that, right?
Oh, yes.
To see what happens and eventually whether he receives a sentence.
Right.
Wow. This is a little bit local, a little bit state. The Bettendorf Police Department has sent out a warning about potential bond fraud scam. Speaking of bonds. Mm-hmm. So I'll read a piece of this directly from this Facebook post. Our community has recently seen an increase in bond fraud scams. So scammers are monitoring local inmate lists. And as you probably know, if you're watching this and you're local, you can see people real time as they are booked into the Scott County Jail, right? And other jails as well in the state. So you can see who's in there when they were booked, and how long, in other words, they've been in, and also what the bond is. So these scammers are monitoring these local inmate lists and contacting family members while pretending to be police officers. The scammers locate phone numbers, and it's not that hard. Believe me, if I can do it, you can do it, and demand payment for a supposed bond. So the victims are then instructed to send money through Venmo. Cash App, or MoneyPack cards, sometimes totaling thousands of dollars. Now, let's say your son, your daughter is in jail. You're terrified. You know that something happened, and yes, they're in jail. And this person who says he or she is an officer, you might jump to that. You might say, what do I have to do to get my son, daughter out, right? So the Bettendorf Police Department has the following reminders. Law enforcement will never request bond payment over the phone. I think that's the most important. Second, Bettendorf Police will never ask you to send money through payment apps or gift cards. Third, if someone contacts you claiming a loved one needs immediate bond money, hang up and call your local law enforcement agencies. One of the things scammers do is make the situation appear to be a lot more timely than it really is. We need this by 5. We need this by 4. That's when they start to rush you and get your blood flowing and confuse you so that you go along with them and act hastily. So the Bettendorf Police Department urges anyone who has sent money or thinks they've been targeted to report it immediately. And I'm going to read you that number because this is not 911. It is 563-344-4015. And that number again is 563-344-4015 in Bettendorf. If you think you've been targeted, or if you have actually sent money and realize now that it was a scam.
Well, I don't think there's any sort of immediacy with a legitimate bail situation.
No.
It's not, you have to have them out by 5 o'clock or,
Or we keep them for 4 more days.
yeah.
That
Or we ship them off somewhere. No.
exactly, Sharon. That doesn't happen.
They're going to stay put until they're either released, like the gentleman with the GPS, or someone pays the bond.
Yes. Yes.
Well, jurors in the trial of a Davenport man who was charged in the with first degree murder in the deaths of Giovanni Flores, 17, and Zachary Meineke, 19, in 2024, they've reached a verdict. A Rock Island County jury found Israel Martinez, now 23, guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder on June 26th after a 2-week-long trial, which began on June 15th. The jury deliberated for about an hour before returning the verdict. And we have a quote here from Moline Police Department Chief Darren Galt. This verdict represents justice for Zach Meineke, Giovanni Flores, their families, and everyone who's been impacted by this senseless tragedy. I could not be more proud of the outstanding work performed by the men and women of the Moline Police Department. From the initial response through the exhaustive investigation and preparation for trial, our officers, detectives, and professional staff demonstrated exceptional dedication, professionalism, and commitment to seeking the truth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, we talk about closure, and I know that's not enough. Closure doesn't bring the loved one back
Right.
or bring you peace of mind, but at least you know action has been taken against the perpetrators.
Right. And it's done. You're not probably going to have to be called on to testify, which would be, I've never had to testify in a case like this. I'm going to assume it's very traumatic and upsetting.
From what we've seen in court, you and I,
Yes.
it must be.
Yeah.
And you have one more, don't you,
Yes.
Sharon?
Oh, this one was a big one. This took some serious reading and writing.
And digging, I'm
and
sure.
digging.
Knowing
yeah.
this woman can really dig into documents.
Oh, this one's fun. The United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Iowa announced a civil settlement in the state as part of the Department of Justice's 2026 National Healthcare Fraud Takedown. That's a fancy name.
Okay, what does it mean?
This takedown is a strategically coordinated nationwide law enforcement action that resulted in charges against, hold on to your hats, 455 defendants, including 90 doctors and other licensed medical professionals, for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud and opioid abuse schemes involving over $6.5 billion in false claims and significant patient harm, including death in one instance. This takedown is a sign of federal, state, and international cooperation. Cases in 56 federal districts and 45 U.S. states and territories. 50 state Medicare fraud control units are participating, the most in Department of Justice history. Now, this does have a little local connection. Genesis Health System, Mercy Health Network Inc., and Trinity Health Corporation in Davenport. This dates back to before Mercy One and Genesis merged. They agreed to pay $4,643,128 after a voluntary self-disclosure concerning Genesis's overuse and resulting overbilling of the Impella heart pump device between April 2016 and March 2022. The U.S. Southern District for Iowa settled the case, and Mercy One Genesis released a statement. Mercy One Genesis takes its responsibility for accurate billing and the trust placed in us by our patients and communities very seriously. Through our internal processes, we identified potential billing issues, voluntarily disclosed them to the government, and fully cooperated with the review. This action reflects our commitment to transparency, accountability, and compliance with billing requirements. We have taken steps to address the issue and continue to strengthen our oversight and compliance practices. Our focus remains on delivering high-quality care and upholding the highest standards of integrity in everything we do. Oh,
I
so
have
that's the
many questions, and I know you can't answer them all. I wonder actually what happened. Like if I would like to know, and I'm sure you would too, if Jane Smith walked in and who was the person who gave her these treatments, right? On this,
It sounds, it's a heart pump. It sounds like it's a replacement part.
okay. I just wonder exactly what all that at each of these situations, and it
Right.
was 6 years, right?
Right.
Over 6 years, what each involved. And maybe we can keep looking into this. This is really scary.
And this is international too. The 2-week Operation Takedown resulted in several defendants being apprehended and returned to the U.S. One defendant in Kyrenia, which is in northern Cyprus, was arrested in connection with an over $3.7 billion scheme. 2 defendants in Estonia were arrested in connection with a previously charged $10.6 billion scheme. And in the Philippines, one of the FBI's most wanted fraudsters was arrested in connection with a previously charged $1.2 billion telemedicine fraud scheme. They used data analytics to target what they call the worst actors, seized over $182 million in cash, luxury vehicles, jewelry, and other assets. Now, these cases are being prosecuted by, we have the list on the story on ourquadcities.com, but it's pretty much every U.S. Attorney's office in the country. 45 states' attorney general's offices are prosecuting these through their Medicaid fraud control units. The list of agencies that are prosecuting is like huge.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not often that we get tagged in even a little bit on something big and international.
No, that is really, wow, that's interesting. I see a FOIA in our not too distant future. And a FOIA is a Freedom of Information Act request that you can make to an entity, an agency, and to find out more about what happened.
Yeah.
So maybe you and I talk after this.
Yeah, and there's FOIAs submitted to cities all the time,
Mhm.
businesses, just trying to get a little more information about what's going on in a certain situation.
Right. Well, this is really interesting, and I feel for all those people who were victims too.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of money we're talking about there.
Wow. And you wonder where it all went.
Well, luxury vehicles, cash, jewelry, and other assets.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As the unofficial scam sharer, Illinois also has prepared a statement about scams. This one is about victims of disasters who need to watch out for scam artists who are ready to take advantage of others' misfortunes. Residents should be wary of door-to-door solicitors who hand out flyers and promise to speed up the insurance claim or building permit process, and also those who ask for large cash deposit or advance payments in full. Con artists are often transients who will move quickly into a troubled area. So let's say you've had some storm damage, right? Somebody comes to your house. Although most building contractors are honest, disasters seem to attract scam artists, so the state of Illinois says. Some claim to be certified by FEMA, while in fact neither the state nor FEMA certifies or endorses any contractor. Ask to see state or local permits or licenses of anyone approaching you about services related to disaster. When possible, use established local contractors recommended by people you know and people you trust. Get receipts for all repair payments, including cash. Do not make a check payable to a person other than the owner of the company name. FEMA inspectors may visit neighborhoods following a disaster. That's true. And all FEMA inspectors will have proper photo ID. Be aware that FEMA and the Small Business Administration inspectors never charge applicants for disaster assistance or for inspections. So we had some storms a couple of weeks ago. We may have some on the way with this heat. Just be careful that you know who's at your door.
And it's terrible that they do this
Oh,
when
it's
people
awful.
are already struggling with cleanup and
Exactly. Kicking someone who's already down,
Yeah.
right?
well, I think that's about all the time we have for our podcast this week.
I will say this,
Yes.
it's very hot, and it's even hot here. I'm like this. So tempers flare sometimes in weather like this. Usually too many beers can exacerbate that. So,
Especially with the 4th of July weekend coming up.
right. Stay calm, stay cool. Keep your pets indoors because
Not in-
fireworks
not
can
in the
scare
car.
them. Yes, and lock your car, lock your houses, and stay safe out there.